Hi everybody, Bentley Compost Guy Christie here, and this is another in my series on food waste optimization. In this particular video, I just want to add some additional thoughts about this entire food optimization idea or concept. I don't want people to get the impression that you need to do exactly what I've been doing in the other videos, and every single time, have to cut everything up super finely and then mix the food waste with lots and lots of living material and these sorts of things. It's sort of an ongoing process, and there's some nuances to it. You don't have to do it exactly the same way every time, and it's actually an advantage to kind of change things up a bit based on how things are looking in the system. And as we'll see in a minute, based on the sort of mixes that I've been adding, which have had quite a bit of that aged horse manure mixed in, things are starting to get a little bit dry for my liking in the worm mega. So what I'm going to do with this particular batch of food waste is kind of go a bit easier on the living material, on the manure stuff, and I'm not going to add any additional bedding, and basically just leave it as a sort of water-rich food waste. Now this mix has been frozen. This is 2 bags of waste materials that were in my freezer yesterday, and they've now thawed out. But as you can see, it's not, this is probably about as optimized as I'm going to do in this particular case. You can see this one's a bit of a pain. The top part of pineapple, and in case anybody's wondering, I know people are all concerned about pineapple and citrus and all these sorts of things. Do not be concerned. Obviously it's about moderation, okay? You don't want to put half a pineapple in at once, or 20 oranges. But in terms of just kind of having it added in moderation, you shouldn't run into problems at all, especially not with a big system, something like a mega, or just a big open flow-through system, or just anything like that. Oh, onions, oh no, onions! There's a lot of materials. Most materials you really don't have to worry about in terms of compostable food scraps. Anyway, I'm not talking about adding all kinds of meat or anything like that. That's a whole other topic unto itself. So basically, I don't want people to assume that everything has to be super pulverized to the point of these tiny little particles. It absolutely helps if you can do that, and what you're trying to do should dictate that. If you really want to nicely optimize food material that the worms are going to get into right away, and you're really gunning for fast processing speeds, absolutely optimize as much as you can. But again, you're going to have to tweak from time to time if things are getting a bit dry. You may want to kind of go easy on the absorbent stuff and just add a bit more of the food waste. It's all about the balance. All right, so I just wanted to kind of make that clear. I'm just going to add, I still have a fair amount of the material. That's probably more than enough. So you can sort of see that, and then I mix it around. And one other thing about these bulky materials, now I caution adding lots of bulky materials, especially ones that haven't been optimized at all, haven't been frozen. As I said in another video, they can be kind of like a nursery for flying pests. So, if you do have an outbreak of fruit flies already in your system, throwing in something really bulky like this, honestly, this isn't even really ideal. If you have an outdoor composter, I don't worry about it myself, but if you do happen to have an outdoor composter, you might want to toss it in there. It's not going to harm anything probably, but this little bottom area right there, that's like prime time fruit fly nursery zone, okay? Anything that's resistant and bulky like that, it would take a long time. This is probably going to come out the bottom end and be well decomposed, but it's certainly not going to be nice pure worm castings or anything like that. So I just don't worry about it. because I have a really nice population of worms in there now, and I know that I can just recycle it as a sort of living material in later feedings, once it comes out the bottom. But that's pretty much it, okay? So this is, you just want to kind of absorb that. See, there's a bit of pooling of liquid. When you freeze, it releases the liquid, and that's a good sign because it means that it's been breaking down the cells of the food waste materials, and that's what we want, because that means those microbes are going to get in there and they're going to really start kicking the decomposition into overdrive. And so all of these materials are going to be on their way to breaking down really, really nicely, and then the worms are just going to be all over it. Okay, so that's still a pretty wet mix. I'm going to turn this video off for now, and I'll sort of bring you back once I am ready to add it to the Mega. Okay, I am back. So I have weighed out the food material mix that I just created in the other video, and it only came out to about 11 pounds, just over 11 pounds. So it's a bit light of a feeding for the Mega, at least in terms of what I've been doing lately. As you may recall, I've had some feedings around 18 pounds, around 22 pounds. So it's a little bit lighter than normal, but that's okay. I don't mind doing that. Again, it's very, very water rich, just because I didn't add as much living material. So it should help to moisten things quite a bit. So you can see the level. It's probably difficult to tell, but the level is still continuing to go down. And I keep kind of topping it up. I guess I'm not really showing the level that it's at once I feed, but it's coming up pretty close to this black, sorry, not even pointing at it, this black layer down here. This is the rim here. So it's always sort of going down in between feedings, which is great to see, especially with the manure getting added, just because that tends not to reduce in volume nearly as much as the food waste. Just sort of digging around. So I know it's tough to see, but this upper layer here, because there's so much airflow and because there's so much manure tends to be a material that, while it holds water really, really well, it can dry out relatively easily. So this upper zone, it's just crazy. I never get tired of gobs of worms, as you can probably tell. I love this kind of digging around. Just everywhere I go. It's actually not, the moisture level actually isn't too bad, just a little ways down there. But nevertheless, there's a lot of bedding and a lot of that aged manure down there. So it wouldn't hurt to add this water-rich stuff. All right, so I'm just kind of clearing out. This middle zone seems to be really rich. And it's probably because over on this half I haven't really been harvesting any worms. As I mentioned in the other video, I've my own little local business up here in Canada, worm composting business, starting to pick up. So I've been actually harvesting a lot of worms from this Mega because there's so many in here. It's insane. And adding them to my harvesting trays and including those with mix that I'm selling to customers. Anyway, I'm going to actually try to one-hand it this time around. Give me a bit of a interesting maneuver, I think. This stand is definitely going to help to... I don't recommend doing this at home, by the way. If you got your own Worm Mega or Worm, two hands, definitely recommend it, and do it gradually. I've been amazed at what this stand has put up with in terms of weight. This full Mega is, I can only imagine how much it weighs. But anyway, if you had a sudden big ball of heavy material, that's probably going to, well, not probably going to, there's a risk of it, creating issues, okay? So anyway, you can see nice and wet, and you can see the food waste really clearly. In my other mixes, it looked a lot like a manure, just because there was so much manure in it. This time around, I have really focused more on the food waste. So that's going to be nice and wet. It's going to help to moisturize this upper zone up here. And one thing I didn't mention is that, it's a bit of a risk. You leave the bulky stuff, and like I said, that can be a breeding ground for flying pests like fruit flies. So definitely not advised, especially if you know you already have some. But one of the advantages of this bulkier stuff, like a banana peel like this, and especially with a worm-in system or any really good open, well-aerated system, is you can literally just kind of layer stuff up. It's almost just like a little garbage bin in a sense. So you can layer it, and because there's so much airflow, you don't have to worry about overfeeding the same way you would with an enclosed plastic bin. So bulky stuff can actually be sort of like a time-released food. It takes a bit of time for it to get ready, and in this case that's a good thing, just because the worms are already feeding on stuff down below. So as this gradually breaks down, it won't be gradual, it'll be pretty quick just based on the way I optimized it, but it'll be a bit slower than my other mixes, and as it breaks down, then the worms can start to feed on it. But again, the flip side is that there is the risk of ending up invaded with these critters if it's a little bit of time before the worms get to it. So just wanted to mention that, and it's something I recommend if you got a bit more experience. One thing I know a lot of people do, and it's really a bad thing to do, say they're going away on a trip, some sort of vacation, and they don't want their worms to starve, which is virtually impossible. If you got lots of bedding in a system, you don't have to worry about your worms starving. And so what they do is they'll add a bunch of bulky stuff that's not broken down yet, and assuming that it'll be this nice slow release food while they're away. The problem is, if all these things kind of break down at the same time, and especially with something like an enclosed bin, very much that's what we're talking about here. An open system like this, it likely wouldn't be a problem at all. But an enclosed bin, suddenly everything's breaking down, and everything goes haywire. And I can't tell you how many emails I've received from people who have come back from trips and are saying, "Oh, I don't know what happened to my worms. They were here when I left, and now they're gone." And usually what happens is, when I ask for a bit more information, I learn that they've done this big feeding right before they left. And pretty much every time that's probably what the problem is. Okay, so just a little bit of caution. I recommend the bulky stuff maybe if you got a bit more experience with vermicomposting. Alright, definitely long enough update, so I will certainly see you guys again soon. Thanks for tuning in.